59 people are confirmed dead in Kenya, with Al-Shabaab militants still holding hostages inside a shopping mall in Nairobi. The Kenyan president says the perpetrators will be punished. Chancellor Angela Merkel has been re-elected. She promises 4 more good years. And life behind bars for the former rising star of China's Communist Party. Disgraced politician Bo Xilai has received a tough sentence for corruption. Critics say it's a politically motivated case. Hello, you're watching France 24, live from Paris. I'm Karen Roberts. Good to have you with us. First, the latest from Kenya, where security forces are engaged in an ongoing standoff with Islamist militants from the Al-Shabaab group at a shopping mall in Nairobi. Canadians, French and British nationals are among the dead. There are between 10 to 15 attackers still inside the building, holding hostages there. The Kenyan president has vowed to defeat terrorism, and he gave a press conference earlier.
The criminals are now located in one place within the building. With the professionals on site, I assure Kenyans that we have as good a chance to successfully neutralize the terrorists as we can hope for.
Well, we can speak to Duncan Woodside, our correspondent in Nairobi. And there was an earlier operation which wasn't successful. There was a second one later. Can you tell us what's been happening over there?
Yes, there was an operation this morning which failed. There were ambulances coming in with wounded personnel, wounded Kenyan security forces personnel after a failed assault this morning. That assault failed because the militants engaged the attackers, the Kenyan security forces, with fire from several different locations at that stage. But obviously they were pushed back. That was this morning. We can confirm that. But in terms of what's going on now, it seems that there is an operation of some sort underway. We don't know the details of that. We also know that about 2.5 hours ago, we heard heavy gunfire, which may have been heavy weapons rather than small arms. One military source saying to us that the militants may be in possession of heavy weapons as well as small arms. So that's how we stand at the moment.
And what more can you tell us about the hostages? How many are still within the building?
Again, at this stage, that information is unconfirmed, and we can't give any precise numbers there. Obviously, Uhuru Kenyatta, the Kenyan president, said earlier on that 10 to 15 attackers are still in the building. In terms of hostages, they've been more reticent about that. The Kenyan Red Cross did say this afternoon that there were 49 people officially missing according to their lists, but that doesn't necessarily correspond with the number of hostages, of course.
OK, thank you very much for that update. That was Duncan Woodside there, our correspondent in Nairobi. Well, for more analysis on the situation, we can now talk to Catherine Zimmerman. She's a specialist on Al-Qaeda from the American Enterprise Institute in Washington. Thank you very much for joining us. There's a history, isn't there, of attacks by Al-Qaeda or its affiliates in Kenya. What's behind all of this?
The recent attacks seem to be a response to the Kenyan military's involvement in Somalia. But as we know, we can go back to 1998 when Al-Qaeda in East Africa conducted the attacks against the U.S. embassy there.
And, well, the Kenyan government has been actually talking about help internationally. The president was saying this earlier. He didn't actually mention Israel. Can you tell us a bit more about that, how Israel is helping the government with this particular terrorist attack?
I've seen reports that Israeli forces will be assisting the Kenyan forces actually in recovering the hostages, but I haven't seen much farther. What the Kenyan president did say was that this attack was targeting Kenyans, elite Kenyans in a very Western affluent mall where there were also Westerners present, and it is an Israeli-owned site.
I was going to ask you about this. Was this particular target unusual, would you say?
I don't think that it's unusual. One thing to remember with Kenya is because of the experience in 1998, many of the foreign targets are hardened. They have very secure facilities. And additionally, Al-Shabaab has specifically threatened Kenya. It is attacked military sites again. And I think that the way to go after the people by al-Shabaab's means is to start targeting soft targets, so civilian targets here.
Well, we're just hearing that the death toll has gone up to 68. That's according to the Kenyan Red Cross. What can the government do to counter this kind of an attack?
The first response is to actually just increase overall security, but that's only preventing an attack that's planned. What really needs to happen is that the ability of al-Shabaab to conduct these sorts of attacks needs to be reduced. And so that means going after the al-Shabaab network that has been built up in Kenya over the past few years, and then also going after the group in its safe havens in Somalia and really destroying the ability of the group to train and organize these sorts of attacks.
Okay, thank you very much for your analysis. That was Catherine Zimmerman there, specialist on Al-Qaeda from Washington. Moving on to other news now, Germany's election, and Angela Merkel has been given a third term in office with her conservative CDU party. But there are big questions about how she'll go on to form a coalition and how that could shape German policies. Merkel's party, the CDU, is on 42.5% at the moment, but her coalition partners are on 4.5%. Challenger Per Steinbrück's Social Democrats, they've got 25.7%, and the Greens on 8.1%, Die Linke on 8.5%, and the Alternative for Deutschland are on 4.9%. Well, joining me in the studio is Stefan Simons, correspondent for Der Spiegel online in Paris. Was there any question that Angela Merkel wasn't going to win?
No, not at all. And that's why many people said, well, this is one in advance, which is true. If you look at the incredible popularity of Angela Merkel, we were sure that she was going to be the new chancellor. The question is, who is she going to govern with? As we speak, it's still open whether she would even get an absolute majority, and then she'd be on her own, not be constrained by any coalition partner.
Well, the FTB, her current partners, they haven't done very well at all, have they?
Well, that's right. And for both, the challenger, Per Steinbrück, who wanted to challenge Angela Merkel with the Greens, it didn't work out because the Greens went low and the SPD just gained a little tiny bit. On the other hand, yes, the allies of Madame Merkel are below the 5% threshold. And that means that either she's going to govern by her own if she can, and she needs 304 seats for that.
And so there are some reports saying that she could possibly have a slim majority.
At this point, as we speak, it's between 303 and 304. So, well, it's going to be an interesting long evening in Berlin tonight.
Absolutely. So if there is a coalition, what kind of a coalition is it going to look like?
Well, if at all there's going to be a coalition, most probably it's going to be a grand coalition putting together the Christian Democrats and the big opposition party, the Social Democrats. Per Steinbrück, the candidate, has already said that if this is the case, he will opt out. And then the leadership of his own party are probably going to claim important positions within the government, because otherwise it's going to be a harakiri. And at the same time, they're going to ask to have at least some key points of their own Social Democrat agenda to be included in the work for the next 4 years to come.
Why did the STB not do so well this time?
Well, the Social Democrats increased a little tiny bit, better than the historical low from last time around, but faced to Angela Merkel, just Per Steinbrück didn't put it together. Angela Merkel just represents exactly the chancellor Germans want, and she's very much appreciated even within the camp of the opposition, including even the Greens. She's had put that image forward of the German housewife, the Mutti.
Yes.
Everyone seems to be, it's like a lullaby. Germans like to feel well at home with her, and it's the ideal aunt or grandmother.
But how would you describe her particular political style? She does things step by step, doesn't she, and keeps things very close to her chest.
Well, that's what's so often we underestimate her, because it's true. While she comes over at very soft, probably having no political line and no vision at all, at the same time, yes, she's a very astute politician, and she's shown a degree of political flexibility, meaning that she can adapt to anything, and she will be able to adapt to the Social Democrats. So just remember just the one thing, Fukushima, when the catastrophe happened in 2011, within 2 days, she changed the traditional historic position of the Christian Democratic Party, and at the same time, she robbed the Greens of their main part of politics.
Okay, thank you very much for that analysis. Stéphane Simons, thank you from Der
you.
Spiegel Online. Well, now let's join our chief foreign editor, Robert Parsons. He's at Angela Merkel's headquarters, and I know the mood is triumphant. Tell us more.
Well, as you say, totally triumphant. I think it goes beyond their expectations to have won 42%. There will be a little bit of disappointment, of course, that the FDP, their coalition partners last time round, haven't made it in, and perhaps at the back of their minds they may be wishing that some of their supporters had transferred their votes to the FDP and would have made the task of forming a coalition government this time round that much simpler. But that said, they've won a crushing victory over their nearest rivals, the Social Democrats, a 16% lead, perhaps a little bit even more than that. But nevertheless, they're still going to have to negotiate to form a government. It's going to be extremely tricky. The Social Democrats will undoubtedly drive a hard bargain, particularly on social issues, on things like minimum wage, what sort of bailouts should be on offer to the southern European countries. Should there be something more along the lines of what some here have been calling a Marshall Plan 2? Those are things that are going to be very difficult for Angela Merkel to swallow, but the bargaining, the dealing is starting now.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Our Chief Foreign Editor, Robert Parsons, there at Angela Merkel's headquarters. Moving on to other news now, and it's been a huge scandal in Chinese politics. Former politician Bo Xilai has been sentenced to life in prison. Bo was once a rising star of the Chinese Communist Party, but he fell from grace in spectacular style. He was convicted of bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power after his wife was found guilty of murdering a British businessman. Well, that's it for now. We'll have more news coming up. Do stay with us.